So before we break out into tables and let everybody have a chance at the talking, which is coming shortly, I thought it might be good to just have a moment here and kind of talk amongst ourselves a minute. I have a couple questions here, and one that I thought actually would be nice to kind of ask to all of you goes something like this. So all of you can think about maybe adding a little bit in to this question. This came up at dinner, and I think all of you spoke in really interesting ways about it. But the role of memory in the food plus dance or performance plus dance equation. See if maybe everyone can take a little tackle at that.
Well, I think that food is incredibly effective in two ways in stimulating memory. So there's a personal memory that everybody brings with them, their personal history of food. We all eat food every day. And so we have this deep and complex relationship to food. And even if we have very different histories, there are these similarities in terms of my mom always does X, or my father always does Y, or my grandmother, and they're not doing the same X, Y, and Z, but there's those family histories that we have. And so our history with food, not just family history, but personal history, the things we like, the things we don't like, the cravings we have, this creates a shared territory. So not necessarily common ground, but a shared territory that we're all sort of traversing every day. But the other element is not just the personal memory, but the body memory. So I'm interested in that, in the sense that if I were to tell you about Brian Priest's performance in Indiana, where he boiled a Bible and made a soup out of Bible. He boiled it until it fell apart, and then he ate the entire Bible page by page. And when I say that, I see some people having this reaction, And what's interesting about that is that you have some connections to what a Bible might smell like once it's been boiled for a very, very long time. So you have maybe a personal relationship to a religious book and that smell, and would it be sour? What would that smell like? But then also this reaction to eating paper. And I could ask you, even this person who had this reaction, do you remember eating paper? And I would bet the people who have this reaction, 9 out of 10 would say, I don't ever remember eating paper. But you have this physical, visceral reaction. Because when we were small, we ate paper. Until it was sodden. We explored the whole world with our mouths for the first 3 years of our lives. And we ate many things. So also, if I were to put a big bowl of dirt on stage and go as if to eat it with a spoon, some people would have the same reaction. They'd have a body memory of eating dirt. If I were to ask you, have you eaten dirt recently? People would say, no. But many of us have eaten dirt before we have a verbal memory of it. Our body remembers that. And so I think that's just fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh, wow. You kind of said it all, I feel. That there is that instinctual thing, just like you were talking about the first 3 years of your life, you're eating everything. It's that sense of, our connection to this earth, is through our senses, through our touch, our taste, our smell. And so the smell of food, can conjure all kinds of memories. Food, there are other things that you smell that can conjure memories, but food does something very deep. It can take you way back. It can take you to these long forgotten places that even when I think about, I remember when I was in love and I loved the way that this person's perfume smelled, and then every time I smelled it for a while I would remember that perfume. But the food I never lose contact with, whether it's positive or negative. One thing that came up in in the conversation we had the other night when we were coming together to talk about this, and Violet was talking about, you know, Kool-Aid and the memory of Kool-Aid. Well, Kool-Aid for me, having grown up in the Bay Area, has a whole other memory. I grew up when I was, you know, a young teenager, Jonestown happened. So my relationship, every time I hear somebody doing a piece about Kool-Aid, I immediately shudder, like, oh, are they gonna go there? You know, as if that's the only place to go. But that is that's so deeply imprinted in my memory and as a trauma of something that I grew up with that, you know, my relationship to that is something completely different. So every time I even see it, it just, you know, I can snap out of it quicker than I used to, but I immediately go there, especially when its element of, you know, bringing it into performance.
Is this on? Okay. I don't know that you guys have said it all, both of you, beautifully. Just to sort of reiterate maybe what both of you said, but Violet in particular, about embodied memory, or I think a lot of what in the indigenous dance that I'm working with is doing is trusting a sort of physical and experiential relationship to history because of conditions in which that wasn't part of the history books. And I think food becomes part of that, the attentiveness to what food does to your body, to ways of eating. And so it's part of a larger sort of embodied way of knowing that is being actively cultivated and trained and brought up, you know, not that's going on. So it's not just about food, but I think food, and I've practiced Iyengar yoga for 20 years, and you know, the attentive, when you're in a physical practice, the effects that different foods have on you become increasingly attuned to them. So in that sense, I think that they are connected, like the way that you eat affects how you move, and therefore the way that you move becomes a way of accessing how you eat too. So.
Yeah, are your heads exploding yet? My head is kind of exploding with a lot of thoughts. Melissa, should we just go for it? All right, let's do it. So let's now move into the next phase of things. And so here's what I'm going to do. If you open your programs, do you not have a thing that says table questions in it? That's right. I'll give you one. There are 4 of them, and guess what? There are 4 tables, right? So here's what we're going to do. Each table is going to have a question attached to it. And if you want to go and hear and contribute to the conversation around that question, then go to that table. And you're going to get 2 chances because we're going to have round 1, and then you can move to a new table and a new question for round 2. Okay, so in helping you think about your table questions, I'll do it this way. This is going to be table 1, and the question here is going to be, in what way do you think the tidal wave of interest in food, slow food, the local, green, and sustainable, is causing the insertion of food into the performance context? And or how are shifting ideals about what we eat and how we eat influencing performance making? So if you want to do that first, that's this table, yeah? This here is table 2. This is how and why do the magical, mystical, or transformative aspects of food items become important in performance, yeah? This is table 3. In our current global economy, food is highly politicized. In what ways might food-oriented performances be contributing to dialogues about the effects of capitalism, post-colonialism, or other issues? This table here. And this is table 4. Use of food in the theater highlights the fact that we're all embodied creatures. How does this reminder affect your performance experience? Okay, so go ahead and migrate to the table you want to be at first, and there will be table facilitators at those tables.